God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. All right, let's get in our seats. I don't want to distract the speaker who drove up here to speak for us. I know. All right. Please join me in welcoming Pat from Fullerton.
Good evening. My name is Pat. I'm an alcoholic. Grateful to be sober. Grateful to be here. Thank you, Kelly, for asking me to participate. And I want to welcome our new friends to Alcoholics Anonymous, those that identified as being new. I want to welcome you. Alcoholics Anonymous is the single most important thing in my life. Today, is that feedback? It sounds almost like dubstep a little bit. It's a womp, womp, womp. Like a nitrous balloon, you know what I mean? Get closer? Oh, speak louder? Okay. Speak louder. Okay. All right, I'll start over. My name is Pat. I'm an alcoholic. And it's already been such a weird night, you know. I was sitting there. I think I'm about to get introduced, and then we're like doing elections. Yeah, I always think it's great when they're like doing it, like treasure. You know, you got to have 5 years, a job, but you can be a bank robber. Only in AA. You know, that's kind of cool. And so thank you everyone for your service to the meeting. Welcome our newcomers, our out-of-town visitor. Welcome. I thank you, Ty, for driving. Yeah, it was cool and happy. He's always happy. And my friends that came and dinner. I don't know, like naturally, like I'm like the little kid in elementary school that smells like poopy pants and syrup. You know what I mean? I'm like super awkward. You know what I mean? I'm anxiety ridden. I've literally bitten off all my fingernails before I got up here. I got a couple like those skin things that hang. I'm getting on those. My fingers are bleeding. I have the nervous disposition that the big book talks about. I'm just like I'm a right fielder on the baseball team. Are there right fielders here? You're just all going to laugh at me? Thanks, Jay. I appreciate it. You know what I mean? It's not like the winning position. You're not like, yeah, Mom, made it to the right field, I'm in right field. I'm like angry at the pitcher. He's usually the coach's son. They get all the I'm like resentful out there. You know what I mean? I'm like wandering off to left field. I'm like, wonder what's going on over here. I have ADD. They probably would have been diagnosed. I don't know. I'm like looking for the dandelion. Somebody told me if I blew off all those things, I can have a wish. And the coach is yelling at me. He's like, the other side of the field, kid. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like wishing for a different life out in left field. And, oh, God, I hated baseball. It was horrible. One time I was on second base. I don't know how I got there. I was terrified. Yeah, I was already so self-centered, so self-obsessed. I didn't know how I got there. I always struck out. The kid, you don't want it to be like ninth inning, 2 outs, and Pat's up. You know what I mean? And I'm on second base. I'm like, where am I at? What am I doing? Do I have the right cleats on? Did I wear the right jersey? Kid cracked the line drive, and I ran back to first base. You know what I mean? Dude, it was like a triple play in the wrong direction, man, and little poopy pants back to the dugout, and my mom's in the stands and she's standing up, kind of like the guy that took the commitment. He's like, I'll do it, she's standing up and she's clapping. I mean, so proud of her kid, and not proud because I got a triple play in the wrong direction. That ain't right. You know what I mean? My mom was proud that I had enough courage to get out of that car to go play that stupid game one more time. You know what I mean? And I remember looking at my mom that day saying, if I only had a dad, that had never happened. And I built a belief system that was going to separate me from you, and I had no idea until I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. But I started to separate myself. And, I don't have a dad because my mom's a blackout drinker, and which means I'll never know who my dad is. For all I know, my dad could be the cable guy. You know what I mean? It's like, pow, chicka, pow now. And Mom didn't know she was pregnant till she was in labor. That's kind of it's a cool story to tell in AA, that's for sure, you know what I mean? But she thought she was constipated, so she called 911, and because I guess that's what you do when you're constipated, you call 911, and so she gave birth in her apartment, and she came out of a blackout, and the paramedic was holding me in her apartment, and the paramedic's like, you need to name him. And my mom was like, name what? And So my mom's name is Patty, so she named me Patrick so she wouldn't forget my name. And cool story to tell in AA, that's for sure. But my mom, before she died, she'd always send me a text that says, make sure you tell them the truth. And I tell you what, like it's been 5 years since my mom died, and I still wait for that text. Literally sit there at the break, look at my phone. And I guess the truth is, Mom, I'm supposed to be a turd, and I'm also a bedwetter. Any other bedwetters? Yeah, good looking out, you know what I mean? Like pre-alcohol, you know what I'm saying? Like bedwetting's like horrible, you know what I mean? Like, dude, I remember my mom was like, oh my God, you're going on a sleepover. She was so excited, you know what I mean? I was like terrified. I'm like, no, I don't want to go, And all my friends would fall asleep, and I'm like, don't go to sleep, stay awake all night. And I would fall asleep, and I'd wake up, and I peed my friend's family couch cushion, you know what I mean? And I remember the shame and the guilt on the inside, you know what I mean? I remember just like the horrible sense of like not feeling a part of, not being wanted, lonely, fearful, and they didn't invite me back, But like if you're new, you're probably thinking like, okay, funny stories, but like what does any of this have to do with alcoholism? You know what I mean? Like long before I ever took my first drink, like I was already so self-obsessed. My mom got sober when I was 11 months old. My mom being a blackout drinker, she would get pulled over for a DUI and then jump out and beat the cop up. You know what I mean? Which is super cool. You know what I mean? It's like gangster mom, And she did that like 12 times, and she's going to prison for 10 years to go to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And she sat in the courtroom and she thought about it, AA or prison, right? AA, right? Which I understand, right? AA or prison. The attorney's like, you need to go to AA, And so she went to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm glad, like, the women in AA, like, it wasn't, like, concerned about a closed meeting. The women in AA just grabbed me at the door. And they took me off to the side so that my mom could come in and recover. And I literally grew up in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous my whole life. Every day I was at an AA meeting. I mean, I could recite chapter 5. I could recite the 12 traditions. The end of the meeting, I was like, keep coming back. The old timers are like, we're saving this seat right here for you, kid, And I didn't know what that meant, you know what I mean? I didn't know, but there's my seat, they knew, you know what I mean? They were full eyes on, And the only reason I tell you that, because if knowledge had anything to do with alcoholism, I'd never taken my first drink. I mean, back then, like, there weren't treatment centers everywhere. The women in AA would just get the newcomer. And I didn't really know this at the time, like, looking back. But we would go to Denny's every night after the AA meeting. And the women would surround the newcomer, and they would smoke cigarettes and drink coffee. And they let her go at, like, 2:15 after the bars closed. And I would wake up at 2:15 every night to get in my mom's car to head home. And sometimes my mom would bring the women home, and I watched a woman die of this disease and go in an alcohol withdrawal. Like, I knew what I didn't know what alcoholism was, but I knew drinking was bad. I remember looking at my mom, telling my mom, I'm never going to drink, I'm never going to do drugs, right? Remember the DARE program? A cop would come, he had all the drugs. There was a part of me that was, like, interested, and curious. And but you had a little red bracelet, and I was like, yo, where'd you get that red bracelet? Remember, just say no bracelet, and you're like, I signed the pledge. And so I go up to the cop, I'm like, well, how do I get a red bracelet? They're like, sign the pledge. I, Pat Ochoa, am not going to drink and do drugs. Signed my name, got the little red band. Now I'm cool, now I got the red, well, you had 5, I'm like, how'd you get 5? You're like, I signed 5 pledges, you know what I mean? So I signed 5 pledges, I had 5 bands, and I meant the promise, you know what I mean? Like, man, we would ding-dong ditch the neighborhood. This would be a cool neighborhood to be a little kid in AA at, that's for sure. But we'd hit the same doorbell every week, and the guy would chase us in the meeting, And we'd hide amongst you, me and my little friends from AA, and the guy'd be like, where are them damn kids? You're like, there's no kids here, and you taught us all how to con and lie and manipulate, but I can also tell you that love has nothing to do with this disease. Like, the love that I feel in this room tonight is a love that I was raised with. But when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I learned that I have a perception problem. I would look outside my mom's window, wonder if my dad was ever coming home. And I'd watch the car after car after car, and the car wouldn't make a right-hand turn. I remember being a little boy, right, saying that if I don't have a dad, then there definitely is no God. And I didn't know if there was anything wrong with me. I didn't know what alcoholism was. I came in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous because my mom would say, go to AA. And I'd go to AA, and they would ask me, are there any newcomers? And I'd raise my hand, and I was like, my name is Pat, and I'm an addict, not an AA. You know what I mean? Everyone's like, oh, there's an addict in our rooms. Get him out of here. You know what I mean? He's going to infest AA. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, yeah, to the old guy, you know, slam the door for effect. I want to piss him off, you know. And none of them ever followed me out of the room and said, hey, kid, here's a book. You know, take this home or to your bush or wherever you're living, you know. Maybe you might have alcoholism. And I'd go out there and I'd die, and I'd come back to AA, and I wouldn't identify because I didn't want the judgment in Alcoholics Anonymous, right? And then I would come back, and then I would say, my name's Pat, I'm an alcoholic and an addict. And then someone's, put $2 in the basket. Some are sicker than others. You know, fuck you, man, you know. And I slammed the door because I want to piss the old guy off. And no one ever followed me out and said, hi, I'm Bob. I want to go to Polly's Pies. I'll tell you my story, you know. And I didn't know what alcoholism was. I was in and out for a long time out of Alcoholics Anonymous. And when I got here on the 23rd of October of 2002, I was met by a man that understood what was in that book. And he sat down with me and he said, what is the effect produced by alcohol for you? And I had to look at the effect that alcohol has produced for me. And when I was 9 years old, I took my first drink of alcohol. I was at an AA meeting of all places, and it was in Laguna Beach. It was a Saturday night. The meeting's now moved, but it was at the hospital, the South Coast Medical Center. And there was this guy. Now I know he's a chronic relapser, but he was outside the meeting. He had a trench coat on. He had an eye patch, and he was pissed. He smoked cigarettes. He was pissed, man. And me and my little friends from AA would always mess with him, dude. And he would chase after us, and you know, and it was just, you know, there's a lot of characters in AA. If you grew up in AA, I mean, look at the guy next to you. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, it's weird, you know? It's like, my mom's like, here's Uncle Tom. He's going to teach you how to fish. You go off with some bozo from AA. You know, Lynn Wilder, rest in peace. Lynn Wilder was my basketball coach when I was a kid. Like, you know what I mean? Just like it was awesome growing up in AA. But this guy, dude, I threw a pebble at him, but he chased after me like he always did. And we ran, me and my little friends, for me, I was 9, they were 14, and we ran through the hospital. And there was a parking structure across, like, for the hospital. And we ran up the stairs. My heart was like, I was like, oh my God, you know what I mean? I was like so scared. So much fun. And those kids pulled out a bottle of Jose Cuervo. And I didn't know what alcohol was going to do to me or for me, but I knew if I didn't drink it, those kids weren't going to like me. And the bottle went around. I got the bottle. I took a pull off that bottle. And I don't know, like, when you drink tequila, but it was gross. I spit it out, and I was overcome with fear. And what that fear told me was that I wasn't going to be like the rest of my life. And the bottle went around a second time, and the second time I got that tequila bottle, I was excited about having it. And I wasn't excited about getting drunk. I was excited that I had another chance to have some friends. And I took a pull off that thing. I talked myself into holding that tequila down. And I can tell you the exact effect that alcohol has on this alcoholic body. In that moment, all that fear went away. In that moment, I felt like I connected to those kids. In that moment, I felt a part of. And that's exactly what alcohol does for me, is it connects me to you, it connects me to me, and it connects me to some sort of power outside of myself. And I didn't become a daily drinker at 9. Mom went to AA. It was hard to get booze at Mom's, you know. But I remember when I was 11 years old, I grew up in Dana Point, and this kid pulled out a joint and some weed, and he's like, hey, and I'm like, yeah. You know what I mean? And this little elf chased me around the park, and I hallucinated for 2.5 hours. I laughed hysterically, and one more time I connected to you. One more time, I felt a part of, you know, and that's what happened for me. And I didn't understand that I had a progressive disease. I didn't understand that when I put alcohol into an alcoholic body, I lost any choice. But now looking back, I know that when I drank that alcohol and smoked that weed, I knew that I was going to do it again. And by the time I was in high school, I grew up in Mission Viejo. I was in Mission Viejo at this time. My mom had moved, and I was in Mission Viejo. Anyone familiar with Mission Viejo, Orange County, suburbs, a couple hands? Well, okay, right, Mission Viejo. In 1992, remember what was happening then? And, Eazy-E and NWA and Ice Cube, you know what I mean? And Mission Viejo. And little poopy pants, right? Terrified. Size 50 Dickies pulled all the way up, you know? And I had a 5XL sweatshirt on, and I drank St. Ides out of a brown paper bag. I was pouring beer in the curb for the dead homies, you know? And I didn't have any dead homies. I was getting ready for some, you know what I mean? And And alcohol one more time gives me power. It turns poopy pants into a gang member. You know what I mean? And I got big friends like Luke and Ty, and I'm like a chihuahua with a big mouth. You know that kid in the crew? I talk a lot of, and then you want to fight, and I'm like, yeah, get him. And then my friends beat you up, And I'm like, yeah, sucker. I might even get a little kick in there, you know what I mean? And alcohol gives me power, right? It's delusional. It deludes the mind that I think I'm a gangster. I mean, I even was like, orale, Holmes, and I even got three little dots on my ankle for mi vida loca in Mission Viejo, for my crazy life, and you know what I mean? I realized I never even got in a fight, so I plucked one of the dots off, and now I have 2 dots, and oh, man. It's rough. And so by the time I was 17 years old, I was in juvenile hall for a crime I didn't even commit. I was like the director of the show, and my friends were hungry, so we ordered Domino's, and my friends went to go rob the pizza man and with my stun gun. And so I ended up going to juvenile hall. I was on house arrest. Doesn't make me alcoholic. It's just the consequences of my disease at 16 years old, right? But it was I wasn't there. I didn't do it, so it wasn't my fault. And my mom started getting a little skeptical about the drinking. And now my mom was like in AA every night. You know what I mean? My mom was like speaking all over the country. My mom was like very active member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was an absolute train wreck. I had no respect for my mom's life, my mom's recovery, for anybody but myself. You know what I mean? And I came out of a blackout one time, and I was peeing all over her fish tank, and just a wreck. And I come home one night, and my mom's like, "You can't smoke weed and drink alcohol in my house." She finally had the courage to tell her only kid, you can't drink and use in my house. And I don't know how you hear that, but I hear I need to hide it better, And so I hide it better for another month. And I come home, and my mom's standing there with a bottle of tequila and a bag of weed in her hand, and she's like, "You're kicked out." And I'm like, well, who wants to live here anyways? So I went into my bedroom, and I packed my backpack at 17, and I walked by my mom, and I looked at her right in the eyes, and I said, "I'm going to do everything I can to ruin your life." And I watched my mom's heart break right in that moment. And I don't know how you deal with shame and guilt. Remember, this alcoholic arrogance came out. I puffed my chest. I grabbed my mom by the collar. I slammed her against the wall. F you. I hate you. You're never going to see me again. And I left the house that night, and I went to an abandoned house where I was getting loaded at. I took my first hit of crack cocaine at 17 years old. And that's the progression for me that fast, 17. And I didn't call my mom for a year and a half because I was going to make her pay for that decision. And I was in San Francisco, and I called my mom collect, and I was like, "Mom, I just got hit by a car, and I need to go to the hospital, and I don't know what to do." And my mom, I said, "I need help, I don't know what to do." And my mom said, "You need to get to the hospital." And I was like, "Yeah, that's great, but I don't know how I'm going to pay for the hospital." And she said, "Well, why don't you just give me the address, and I'll send them a check?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, Mom, they need cash." She said, "Well, I don't know how I'm going to give you cash. I'm in Orange County, right? You're in San Francisco. I'm in Orange County." I said, "There's a thing called Western Union right down the street from the treatment center you're the program director of, And my mom was terrified that she was going to lose her only child. She ran down to that Western Union, wired me money just like that. And a week later, Clumsy got in another accident. Man, my mom wired me the money just like that. And for the next 8 years, my mom would wire me about $150 at least once a week for the next 8 years until she found Al-Anon, which is kind of, well, the gig's up then, And she knew about Al-Anon, active member of AA, but when I went to treatment, you know what I mean, then she had to go Al-Anon, right? And they're like, "You need to, you're not a professional in the industry. You're you're alcoholic 20, however many years over here. You need to go to Al-Anon." And I don't know, treatment was great. I could feel the newcomer love in this room. I fell in love in treatment. I mean, 28 days in treatment, writing notes, same sobriety date, it's God's will for sure, And, I had to do a 9-month program. I wrote her a note, "Where should we go to sober living?" It's like Hawaii. It was so romantic and everything, And we never had a conversation. We fell in love, writing notes. And I got on the plane to go to Hawaii to go to sober living, and the flight attendant asked me what I wanted to drink, Well, I wasn't an alcoholic. I didn't go to Betty Ford because I was an alcoholic. I went to Betty Ford because I was a heroin addict. Right, because 2 days before I went to Betty Ford, I was living on in the Tenderloin. I was surviving on the Tenderloin back, and basically I met this girl and she brought me in and she cleaned me up, which but then she wanted me to get a job, which is kind of annoying, but I did. I went and got an interview and I got hired as an assistant director at a YMCA after school program, 43 days clean and sober. Assistant director, YMCA elementary school, 43 days. And anyways, I was 3 days into it, man. I was like living the best life I'd ever lived. I was in love. I had a place to live. I had the best job I ever had. And I was grateful. And I was pushing this little kid on a swing. And the thought came to my mind that a pint of tequila and a bag of heroin would be a good idea. And I called the Connect, and he brought me a pint of tequila and a bag of heroin at elementary school. And I went to that bathroom, and I did what I had to do, and I came to with the director pulling me off that toilet, say, get off this campus, you have 10 minutes before I call the police. And so I went to treatment, right? Heroin was the problem. Didn't understand that I had alcoholism, didn't even know what alcoholism was. I had heard the old guys in AA, they would say it's the first drink that gets you drunk. Now, wrap your head around that, dude. You need to drink a little bit more, old guy. You know what I mean? One beer and you're drunk. I didn't understand, I didn't get it. But what happened was I went to treatment and I get out and I'm going to Hawaii to go be with my sober girlfriend, right? To live a sober life, to be in sober living, right? And I'm going on the plane and the flight attendant's like, what do you want to drink? I'm like, well, I want a Heineken, right? Because alcohol isn't a problem. And I drink the Heineken, and I drink a Heineken, and I drink it. Before you know it, 12 or 13 Heinekens later, I land in Hawaii. And I'm standing there that day, and I'm thinking about it, sober living or bar? Sober living or bar? Sober living or bar? All of a sudden, it was like sober living was like, the bar was like, bar! Man, I was like, dude, I'll go to sober living tomorrow, you know what I mean? And I walked in the bar and I ordered another drink, you know what I mean? And it took me another 2 years till I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, but that's when Mom found Al-Anon, which sucks, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, Mom, I need money. And she's like, no. I'm like, no, what do you mean no? She's like, no's a full sentence. And I'm like, oh my God, And I'm like, well, Mom, if I only had a dad, I wouldn't be in this situation. It's all your fault. And I hit that guilt button, and man, my mom would wire me the money just like that. And then I would call her and tell her I'm going to get a job, and she'd wire me the money to get the clothes. And I would tell her that man, I'd tell her horrible things, man. I'd break my mom's heart over and over. And I don't know, 6 months being in Hawaii, my mom wouldn't wire me any money, but she bought me a plane ticket back to Los Angeles, and I landed at LAX, and I went straight to Skid Row. And I would be there for a year and a half before I got sober. And Mom wouldn't send me money. I don't know if you've ever panhandled and watched people walk by you and look right through you. Not right into you, right through you. You don't even exist. And my last hustle as a straight man is I wander up to West Hollywood and I go into those gay bars and I flirt with enough men to get enough alcohol in my body and hope that I make it out before I black out. And some days I do and some days I don't. And 3 days before I got sober, on the 20th of October, I came to sexually assaulted for the 12th time. And I had only one option, man, and that was to kill myself. And I was walking down Santa Monica Boulevard, and there was a truck coming fast enough for me to jump in front of. And as I'm about to jump in front of this truck, I have the thought that comes through my mind that tells me if I get a pint of tequila, everything will be all right. And I went to the liquor store, man. It was just that way. And I went to the liquor store, and it was 5:30 in the morning, and I'll never forget that 30 minutes of sitting on that wall waiting for that liquor store to open, man. And the anxiety in the mind and the vicious voice of how horrible a human being, you're a loser, right, your whole life, and just going. And I'm sitting on this thing, and I'm just about to snap when the lady opens the liquor store door, man. And I instantly get that instant ease and comfort, man. And I run into that liquor store, and I get that pint of tequila, and I go back on that wall, and I put half that bottle back. And I have that conversation I always have, man. This time's going to be different, Pat. This time you're going to make it right with your mom, and this time you're going to go back to school, and this time you're going to get the job, man. And in the middle of that conversation, the next voice says, drink that second half of that bottle. And I put that second half of that bottle back, and I black out for 3 more days. And I come to 3 days later doing the exact same thing in order to get what I need to get, man. I come to, and that morning I have a spiritual defense. And that spiritual defense stepped right in between me and that first thought that told me to get that pint of tequila, and it said, call your mom and ask for help. And I did. I picked up the phone. I said, Mom, I need help. And my mom on the other end of the line, she said, Patrick, she said, I can't help you anymore. She said, just stay right where you are, and someone from Alcoholics Anonymous will come and get you. She said, if I come and get you, I'm going to end up killing you. And she hung up on me. And I'm so grateful that my mom didn't come help me one more time, because I would have manipulated her for 20 more bucks, and I can guarantee I wouldn't be standing here tonight. And my mom tried to call every high-profile old-timer in Laguna Beach to help her kid, man. And none of them answered the phone. And the guy that answered the phone had just gotten off the phone with this doctor that told him he had stage 4 cancer and he had 6 months to live. And that guy knew that if he didn't treat his alcoholism, he wasn't going to make it 6 months. And he didn't say, have the kid call me. He said, where is he at? My only bit of willingness was to my mom that day. And that guy got the address, man. He went and grabbed a new guy, because we don't do 12-step calls alone. And they went down to that motel in Anaheim, dude. And I remember sitting on the bed, on the end of the bed. I hadn't showered in 6 months. I was 98 pounds. I had 2 shoes. Only one had a sole. And I sat on the end of that bed just shaking violently, man. And that guy barged right in the front door. He had big, crazy hair. He's like, my name's Jack. I'm an alcoholic. I was like, this other guy was on a walker. He's like, my name's John. I got 90 days sober. You know what I mean? Oh, my God. I'm sitting here going, man, these guys are losers. You know what I mean? This guy's like older than dirt over here. Man, this guy's loud, obnoxious. Man, you need to comb your hair. You know what I mean? But there's that mind, that separator, man. The main problem of the alcoholic centers in my mind, man. It's separating me from you. And it's talking to me, and it's saying, I'm not like you, and you're not like me, and my case is different than yours, and keeping you at arm's distance. That same little boy, man, that was on second base, man, that got the triple play in the wrong direction. If I only had a dad. And I'm separating myself, man. And I know tonight that when I called and asked for help, God heard that prayer. Though I did not believe in God until I was 10 years sober, man, God heard that prayer. And that prayer was, Mom, I need help, with no plan attached to that. And I know tonight that when I called and asked for help, I walked into God's grace. Because that guy, Jack, looked at me and he said, come with me, kid. And I got off the bed and I followed that guy to that motel. And I got down to this van and he goes, just get in the van, kid. And I got in the van. And if you're new, just get in the car. 10 of us just got in the car tonight. We went to dinner. We come to the meeting. We might get ice cream after. I hope so. But we just get in the car. I've been getting in the car for 21 years. You know what I mean? Just getting in the car. I got in the car with these guys. I didn't know I was getting in the car, man. I just got in the car. And that guy was like, oh, yeah, I drink and I go to the hospital. And the old guy, John's, oh, yeah, I drink and I go to the hospital too. And Jack's, I drink and I go to the hospital. Oh, they're just laughing, drinking and going to the hospital. I'm looking for the differences because I don't go to the hospital, man. I'm like, these guys aren't like me, man. I go to jail and I'm looking at my own alcoholism. I'm looking at what happens to me when I drink, though I don't even know it. You know what I mean? I'm separating myself, trying to figure out how to get the heck out of here. I drink, I don't go to the hospital, I go to jail. And before he knew it, I ended up at Charlie Street, man. And I sitting on the couch, man, and this couch stunk, dude. I was like, they need to clean these couches, you know. Now, I hadn't showered in 6 months, but I thought it was the couches, you know. And I'm sitting there, man, and that guy, Jack, goes, hey, Pete, come on over, man. And this guy, Pete, came waddling on over, and Pete was tattooed from head to toe. And Jack didn't try to convince me of his alcoholism. He goes, hey, Pete, when you drink, what happens to you? He goes, I go to prison. I was like, I go to jail. Before he knew it, man, Pete grabbed this other guy and this other guy. There was 6 or 7 of us on the couch telling our stories. I'm so grateful that we're a storytelling society, man. We come here and we tell our stories, man, because we sat on the couch and we told our stories. Orderly, we drink, we go to jail, dog, yeah. We go to jail, homie, yeah. You know what I mean? Orderly. We're doing the things, you know. I start walking, hey. But the little weasel, man, that sponsor guy, I didn't know I had to go, how do you get a sponsor? He goes, I've already been your sponsor. Don't worry about it, And I wouldn't have picked him. I didn't even like him. He got on my nerves. He was annoying, you know what I mean? But I didn't know you could pick one. I just, okay, And he goes, Pat, when you go to jail, do you want to go back to jail? I thought sometimes. But most of the time, no. He goes, then what happens? I go, I don't know. My mom comes and sees me. My mom, AA mom, sits. Remember that glass? You ever go to jail? Look at your loved one with that look of disappointment. You need to do something different. Mom, I promise, I'm not going to drink anymore. Just go to AA. Okay, I'll go to AA. And I do the H&I when it comes. I gave my life to Jesus. About an hour before I get out, Ochoa, roll it up. I give all the homies a commissary because I'm not going back to jail. And I'm sitting in the holding tank, man, and I'm like, man, I hope they don't catch that Warren in Riverside, And they release me, and I get out of jail, and I go to the liquor store, 7-Eleven. I get a 12-pack of beer because alcohol's not my problem. And I drink a beer, and I drink 2 beers, and I drink 3 beers. Before you know it, I'm down the street meeting a new friend. Next thing you know, we're business partners. Next thing you know, we're in jail again. I'm thinking, how'd I get here? He goes, what happened? I said, my mom comes and sees me. I do H&I. I give my life to Jesus. You're out of here. I'm getting released. I go, you know what? Alcohol's not my problem. Crack cocaine's my problem. Heroin's this drug's my problem. Drug after drug after drug after drug. Every time I get out of jail, I go to 7-Eleven. I get a 12-pack of beer. 1 beer, 2 beer, 3 beers. I down the street, meet a new friend. Before you know it, I'm back in jail. He goes, you're back in jail again. What happened? My mom, H&I, gave my life to Jesus. 12-pack of beer, 1, 2, 3, down the street, back in jail. I start telling him story after story after story after story after story after story. And he looks at me, he stopped me in my tracks. He goes, Pat, stop. He goes, if you can concede both propositions, physical, that when you put alcohol into your body, you can't stop until you end up in jail. And more importantly, with a sober mind in jail, you have a mind that's driving you back to the thing that's going to kill you. He said you might be alcoholic. And he left me in that silence like that, man. And I looked at him, I go, dude, Jack, I'm alcoholic, And the guy lit up like a chandelier. He's like, I got a new guy, you know what I mean? And he had the big book, and he was on fire for AA, man. And he started talking about this God deal. And, dude, I was like, nah, man, if this is about God, I'm done, man. I'm out, And he switched the conversation. He talked about when the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous gave him joy when he walked his daughter down the aisle. And I was like, what? He said, every Saturday I go watch my grandkids play baseball and have happiness for my grandchildren. I came to believe that if I did the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I could have joy and happiness for another human being. That was so foreign to me. It was like way, way out there. And so I made a decision to do what that guy told me to do. 1, 2, and 3. He looked at me and he said, I want you to take a shower. And I thought, how did you know, But I'm a people pleaser, so I went to the little detox bathroom and I turned the water on and I fell down on the ground and I started to cry. And I felt like hours down there on the floor crying, just screaming, that pain on the inside. I don't know if I know you guys understand the scream with no mouth. On the floor, man. And that guy, Jack, came in, man. He got down on the ground with me, held me down there. He said, kid, it's going to be all right, kid. It's going to be all right, kid. It's going to be all right. Kid, it's going to be all right. Kid, it's going to be all right, man. And I remember just in this guy holding me down that detox floor. I know that God used that servant that day. I remember just turning up and looking at him, dude. He looked right into me. Not through me. Right into me. Looked right into me. And he said, kid, he said, I love you. He goes, you don't have to live this way anymore if you don't want. As long as you want to do a few simple things around Alcoholics Anonymous, man. He said, you think you could stand up for me? And I got a little bit of trust for another human being. And I stood up and he said, I want you to take off your shirt. And I took off my shirt. He said, I want you to take a step in that shower. Take a step in. Take another step in. I was underneath that water with that guy just shaking violently like he was halfway in that shower with me, holding me up. I just shook underneath that water. And that man took a washcloth and he took a bar of soap and the man scrubbed my back. And for the first time in my life, 27 years old, I felt love from another human being. And I felt that love right here in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. The same love that I met when I walked in, the same love that I met sitting here, the same love on the break. is a love that pulled me right into this thing called Alcoholics Anonymous, man. And for me, Alcoholics Anonymous is about unconditional love that we have for one another here. It wasn't a break me down, build me up thing. He said, kid, he said, there's some clothes that are on your bed. He said, I want you to come downstairs when you're done. And I went into that detox bedroom, man, and there was some clothes on that bed. And I looked in the corner, and my old clothes were in the corner in a plastic bag. And I got on that, put on those clothes, man. And I'll never forget sitting on the edge of the bed, putting on that brand new pair of socks. He allowed me to have the only bit of pride and dignity that I had left. Had that sense of pride, just a little bit. And I walked downstairs, and the guy handed me a pad of paper and a pen. I started writing inventory day one. Read the little chicken scratch inventory. I did a 5th step with that guy. I got on my knees, and I prayed to a God I didn't believe in. I said the 7-step prayer, my Creator, I'm now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I said the prayer. I wrote the little list. 4 days sober, I had this 8th step. And he started talking to me about sober living, right? And I was like, well, no, I got to go to the Salvation Army. He goes, why? I go, because I got a warrant. He goes, oh, we're going to turn yourself in tomorrow, you know? And I was like, whoa, bro, a little quick. I go, I'm going to prison for 3.5 years. He goes, oh, no, you're sober now, and you got God in your life. And I was like, nah, remember, I don't believe in God. He goes, you can borrow mine, you know? And oh, my God. And so the next day he put me in a suit, man, and he goes down to South Court in Orange County, and Ochoa, and I'm standing there in front of the judge, and the judge goes, Mr. Ochoa, do you remember the last time you were in my courtroom, what I told you? I said, yes, sir. He goes, what did I say? I said, you said you were going to sentence me to 3.5 years in prison if you saw me again. But I just want you to know that I'm 4 days sober, and that's my sponsor, my 12-step AA sponsor, and I'm on my 9th step, and I'm here to clean up the wreckage of my past. He said, that's great. You're going to prison for 3.5 years. And he closed the folder up, man, and I started talking to myself. Man, why did you trust that guy? You never trusted men your whole life. That guy told you that everything was going to be all right, and his God must be pretty small because you're going to prison. But an old guy by the name of John Ackerland told me when I was new, he goes, I don't care if you believe in God or not, kid. Just get on your knees and say, God, I don't believe that you exist. Old man John told me to pray. So tell God your prayers as if you did believe. And so I did. I got on my knees in that holding tank, and I was like, God, I don't believe that you exist. Old man John told me to pray. Get me the hell out of here, will you? Well, guess what? 4:30 came around. I'm getting shackled up to go to prison. And I'm on the bus, man, and God doesn't work, and AA doesn't work, and sponsorship doesn't work, and the engine starts, and the door closes. And I'm going to prison, man. And all of a sudden, the door opened, and the guard goes, Mr. Ochoa. I looked up, and she goes, I don't know what's going on, but the judge wants to see you one more time. And I go up, and I sit in front of the judge, and the judge goes, Mr. Ochoa, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm going to give you another chance. He said, there's a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and he pointed to my goofy sponsor over there. He goes, that guy has been fighting for you all day to get out of here, to go to the Salvation Army, but you're going to go straight from here to the Salvation Army. I was like, yes, sir. Now, my sponsor had called over and over and over, and this guy had gotten sober, and this guy became a counselor, and he walked in this room to print some papers. He wasn't supposed to go in there. But he went in there, and the phone was ringing. He wasn't supposed to answer, but he knew inside his heart he needed to answer. And my sponsor said, I got this kid, Patt Ochoa. And when I walked into the Salvation Army, I was met by that guy, and that guy's name was Tim. And Tim was a guy I used to get loaded with. God is working in my life, though I don't believe in God. That guy fought for my life. If you're new, we fight for your life. If you're new, even though I just said the goofy prayer, I don't believe that you exist. You know what I mean? But this guy told me to, so here I'm praying. God's working in my life. And 90 days sober, I'm at the Sally, and I had to make amends to my mom, my AA mom. I called my mom. I was like, hey, Mom, I want to make amends. She's like, it's about time, you know, and... I sit down with my mom, my AA mom. I go, Mom, remember that one time I called and I told you I had to go to the hospital? She goes, yeah. I go, it was a lie. She goes, I know. I go, hey, Mom, remember the other time I called you? I needed clothes for work? She goes, I know, that was a lie too. I was like, what? I go, remember that one time? She just stopped me in my tracks. She goes, I know that every time you called and asked for money, she goes, I know it was a lie. And I was like dumbfounded. And I looked at my mom and I was like, then why did you give me the money? And she said, because when you left my house at 17, you broke my heart. And I sat up every night, terrified I was going to get the call that you bled out. And that I was going to have to come identify the body. And I thought that if I gave you the money one more time, it might keep you alive long enough for you to get to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I got really present. It wasn't about the lie that was the harm. The direct harm was that I robbed my mom of her security day in and day out. And I looked at my mom and I was like, Mom, how can I make this right? I was just crying, man. I said, how can I make this right? And my mom looked at me and she said, I just want you to get in the middle of AA and help as many people as you can. And I ran back to my sponsor and I was like, this AA thing's amazing, this healing, we love each other. He said, yeah, but what about the money? I said, she don't want the money. He said, yeah, but AA wants you to pay it back, you know. And I thought, man, why'd you ever tell this guy anything, man? And I said, well, what do I have to do? He goes, you're going to pay her $25 a week. I go, I owe her $100,000. He goes, you'll pay $25 at a time. And I'm like, so I had to write my mom a note. Mom, I love you and I appreciate you. And leave her $25. Mom, I love you and I appreciate you. $25. Every week I wrote the note. I left the money. 6 months in, the sponsor goes, you're doing such a good job. I want you to write the note every day and leave the money once a week. And dude, I don't know, a couple years in, these notes started turning into love novels. I was like, I remember when I was 10, and some of the notes even had little teardrops on them, you know what I mean? And you guys were getting boyfriend and girlfriends, and I was having a love affair with my mom, and this is weird, you know what I mean? I call the sponsor, I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. He goes, you don't have to do it anymore if you don't want. I'm thinking, dude, I'm off the hook, man, I don't want to do it. He said, but how free do you want to be, kid? No, I love you and I appreciate you. And I can tell you, thank God for strong sponsorship, man, because I wrote my mom a note, sent my mom a text, or called my mom just about every day to the day that my mom died. And I would have missed the miracle, man. I would have missed the miracle. Thank God. My sponsor is Mike S. out of Riverside. Absolutely love that man. I love that man with everything. He knows everything about me. I trust him. Right? I can stand completely naked, no pretenses, everything completely stripped down in front of that man. And man, my mom got a COPD, man. My mom rocked an oxygen tank like nobody's business, man. That's right. Me and my mom spoke all over the place with that oxygen tank, dude. Like, man, I was going to Canada one time, and I said, Mom, I got a felony. I don't know how I'm going to get into Canada. She goes, well, if it's God's will, we'll get in. And so I was pushing her in the wheelchair, and my mom started flirting with the customs guy, man. She was like, oh, you're the hottest guy ever, and will you date me? And can we go on a date? He's like, just stamped us through, man. I said, Mom, was that God's will? She goes, I don't know, we're in, you know. And but after the home group one night, man, my mom called me after my home group, which is South Coast Speakers Meeting in Laguna Beach, and my history of my group. That meeting's been there since 1946. You know, giants, man, and the structure of that group. I just have a lot of respect for my home group, and but my mom called me after, and she complained about the speaker, like you guys will do tonight, you know, and I said, Mom, I'll see you in the morning, and she said, I'll see you in the morning, Patrick. And I showed up to my mom's house, and my mom got rushed to the hospital. And we went to the hospital, and there was a tumor that blocked the passageway. And they cored out the tumor, and they put her on hospice. And my mom said, I'm only going on hospice to get off hospice. Don't trip. That's what she said. Well, sure enough, 2 weeks later, my mom was off the hospice bed, back at Starbucks reading the book with her sponsee, back at the women's meeting, back at Legacies, back at the home group, you know. And that night, she called me again, complained about the speaker, and I said, I'll see you in the morning. And I go there in the morning, and the tumor had grown back. 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, the tumor had grown back, and I know it's the end, man. And I'm praying, and I don't want to miss my mom's last breath. I sat in speaker meetings all the time. Still, my home group's the speaker meeting. I've been going to speaker meetings since, and every speaker, the greatest gift that AA gave me was that I was there when my loved one took their last breath. And I want your experience, man, but I don't want to walk through my own experience. And I go sit with my mom. My mom sits there and looks at me, and she goes, Patrick, don't sit here and watch me die. Go out there and live your life. Come back tomorrow in the morning and give me a kiss, will you? And I would leave, and I would come back, and I'd give her a kiss, and I'd leave, and I'd come back, and I'd give her a kiss. And the tumor's grown back, and I'm going to Idaho to speak at a conference, and I don't want to miss my mom's last breath. And I'm praying, and I'm like, God, I don't know what you want me to do, but I can't miss my mom's last breath, but I got to go be a service to Alcoholics Anonymous. What do you want me to do? And I sit in meditation, and I hear the answer. I know the answer to go be of service to Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, I don't like that answer, so I pray 2 days in a row. I meditate 2 days in a row. I get the same answer 2 days in a row to go be a service to Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, I don't like that answer, so I pray 3 days in a row. I meditate for 3 days in a row. I get the same answer to be a service to Alcoholics Anonymous. Then I call the sponsor. I call him. I say, Sponsor, what do you want me to do? He goes, what does God want you to do? So I go give my mom a kiss. I said, Mom, I'll be back. I don't tell her where I'm going. I just say, Mom, I'll be back. And at this time, she's kind of incoherent. She's there a little bit, and I fly to Idaho, and I'm going to speak Saturday night. I'm in this huge auditorium with all these people. Man, I get a call from my friend that says, Patrick, your mom's been unresponsive for 2 days, 3 days. She hasn't moved. She hasn't said a word. You need to hurry up and get back because your mom wants to say goodbye before you die, if she dies. And I get on my knees. I go, God, what do you want me to do? And God told me to be a service to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I gave a talk that night. The next day I came home and I landed at Orange County and I drove my car as fast as I could to Mission Viejo. And I walked into my mom's room where she was on hospice, and my mom sat straight up like this. Felt spirit walk in the room. I'm so grateful for the 10th step promise that says by this time we have entered the world of the Spirit, man. And I went into my mom's arms and she held me and she said, Pato, I want you to know you did the right thing. I love you, I love you, I love you. And 2 or 3 days later, my mom died and my heart broke. But what happened for me in that moment was there was a level of forgiveness that was so profound. I honored my mom's amends all the way to the day that my mom died. All she wanted me to do is to get in the middle of you and help you, and I honored that amends. I kissed my mom on the forehead that day, and I said, Patty, I want you to know from this day forward, I'll carry on your legacy in Alcoholics Anonymous. If you're new, my message tonight is that Alcoholics Anonymous is a lot more than just not drinking. Alcoholics Anonymous is a process of growing up. And it's my prayer every night that if you're new, you find someone in this meeting that understands all 3 sides of this triangle and circle. My name is Pat. I'm an alcoholic, and I love you all. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Pat. All right. Thank you. Let's do our cleanup announcement. Alan, is that you tonight?
Yes. Alan, alcoholic.
Alan.
Connor and I need 8 volunteers to help us clean up this lovely place. Can you please raise your hand? I got 1.